transcripts on through that like Logitech bit, but if someone is on Zoom and is a host, they should be able to do it on like their laptop.
Transcripts on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can figure that out.
Yeah, that's the
We'll
only.
give just another moment to see if we can get transcripts started. The recording apparently is running. And transcripts are useful, especially since not all of us are native English speakers. And I am going to try so hard to keep my mouth at a slow rate, which to me is a challenge. That's just one of my personal challenges.
We're all looking forward to it, Janina.
Thank you. Thank you, Frederick. Good to hear your voice. How are we doing, Michael?
I can't find the option to take the host option.
Look in the on the screen there. Go to the participants.
Yeah.
Find it. Mute yourself.
Yeah, no, I muted.
Okay. Look for your name in the list.
Okay.
Select your name, and there should be an option to make co-host
On the
or host.
right.
Okay. Make host. Okay.
Went through
No,
the
I'll make
test.
co-host. Actually, that's better. Make co-host. Okay. Very
Make
good.
haste.
Okay. Let's see. Still hasn't given me the transcript link. Maybe I need to make a full host. Sorry, this is slower.
Might help you see it. I don't know if someone can try requesting the transcripts. That sometimes makes a pop-up appear that and then hit yes or no.
Yeah, that would be helpful if somebody wants to try that.
I'm in Zoom. There's a way to request transcripts. Let me see.
And thank you, everyone, for your patience with all of the aspects of the technology. By and large, it's been a very much of a success this week.
We're on.
Okay, we're on. I did have to go to full host.
Thank you. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is,
If you're going, Lionel's going to be showing the slide presentation. If you could do it on show slides so that we don't have all the wrapper stuff, that'd be handy.
Yeah, that was just to, we actually are, there is no shared presentation expected.
okay, let's once more. This is Accessibility at the Edge. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We're mindful that this is a topic that has had a lot of controversy, a lot of discussion. We hope to bring some clarity to the reasons for, and in fact, we want to document some of the reasons why people have had such strong reactions to overlay technology. But we also want to look at possible uses of it that really benefit accessibility. So the situation is as follows. We have a panel here. Before we get started with the panel, we're going to have a few rules of the road. Judy, can I look to you for that?
Sure, yeah. And thanks for getting things started. And I wanted to welcome people to the W3C Technical Plenary Advisory Committee meeting, particularly those who might be just joining this meeting and haven't been participating in TPAC generally. So a reminder that community groups are different from W3C's chartered work. It can provide an opportunity for exploration of topics within the broader web community. Sometimes it leads to further technical work, but sometimes it's just an opportunity to explore. So the existence of the community group is not an endorsement of any particular area of work. W3C hopes that there may be some constructive technical discussion today. The discussion must adhere to W3C's Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. And I would drop the link in, except that I've got it on a different computer than my IRC is. But the shortest version of it is treat people with respect. W3C and the Web Accessibility Initiative WAY are very aware of the controversial nature of this topic, as Janina has just mentioned, and that people with disabilities have experienced problems with overlays. We hope to focus on technical discussion here. We're glad that there's some organizations that are looking at business ethics And it may turn out that there are things that can be pointed to from W3C to other places, including in the ethical web principles. We're open for doing that. I also just wanted to notice that the document that will be shared today as for background discussion is labeled a draft community group report. Typically, something gets that status after community group discussion, including on the list and so forth, which there hasn't been yet. So we're hoping this breakout session provides the way for people to start commenting on the lists and into the community group to register ideas and reactions, including concerns. Again, we're under Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct, and appreciate people being here today for a good technical discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. And I will go first with a brief statement, then I will turn to three co-panelists for brief statements. We have a gamut of, and hopefully the reasons for the panel will become clear as we go through it. My role here really is as facilitator of this breakout session. I do have a consulting relationship with UserWay, which is sometimes said to be in the overlay business. I don't think UserWay likes to think of themselves that way, but that's not the point. We're not here to talk marketing. We're here to talk technology. We're here to identify problems that technology can create, and we're here to identify opportunities that technology creates. And I'm holding up my hands because I want to suggest that our hands are technology. All right, they're long evolved over time technologies, and for the benefit of those that can't see, I'm now touching my thumb to the tips of my fingers. That prehensile capability is behind so much of the tooling we do in our lives. Fire a good technology? Is the hand a good or an evil technology? Well, if you would like a loaf of bread, I might be able to bake you some bread with my hands, and I'll need some fire to do that. Does that make it good? What if I burn your house down? Is the fire evil all of a sudden, or is the action the evil and the baking of the bread? That action is the good. So that is the framing I would like to give our conversation today. We're talking about a particular technology that is located in the web traffic paradigm that starts with content coming from one and actually from many servers and ending up in a user's browser, user agent of some kind, smartphone, whatever it happens to be. In the way there is various processing actions that happen to it. We want to look not so much at the specifics of how that technology figures. We don't care about the TCP/IP so much. It's technology. We care how it's applied. We care that at a certain point, a server in that process is doing something with the content that could be useful or harmful. And we would like to itemize those things so we can make really useful conclusions from our survey and overview of what the technology can do and what it has perhaps been used to do inappropriately. Now, mindful that there have been ethical questions raised about the technology, and the technology itself has been blamed. Our first panelist here, Ken Nakata, I've invited specifically because he was asked by the International Association of Accessibility Professionals to help put together a statement on the topic. I'm mindful that one of the blindness organizations in the US also came out with a statement. We had a meeting with them actually afterwards, and the meeting reached a rather different conclusion than the resolution they voted at their convention. But the IAAP came out and did have some conclusions. So Ken, would you like to please briefly summarize for us? And we'll maybe get started with where the ethical concerns come from.
Sure, Janina. So good morning, everyone. I don't know, I don't really know exactly what our statement said now that I was looking back on it. I was thinking more about the technical guidance that that we had come up with, but I could do a quick review in a couple of minutes and dig into that. Yeah, there definitely is this ethical side to it, and I think that that's one of the key things that IAAP was focusing on. So let me give you a little bit of historical perspective on the work that I've been doing with IAAP. But first, let me just say, you know, like a lot of people in this room and a lot of people that have worked on this topic, I kind of hate this topic. It seems like it's impossible to, it's not that I hate that overlays technology, we just don't know where that's going to go, and it hopefully will bear some really amazing fruit in the future. But I just hate dealing with this topic because every time I step into it, it seems like it's impossible to not get caught in the crossfire. So back in June, Excel over at IAAP asked me to work as a consultant to help them develop a little bit of consensus around this issue as a possible lead up to next month's M-Enabling conference in Washington, D.C. So he also asked me to help them develop their grievance process so it becomes a bit more robust. So as I worked on that, the work changed over the weeks and months that followed. And it grew to include creating a rough set of best practices for the industry, both from a technical perspective and from an ethical business perspective. And so to create that rough draft, I worked with, you know, a bunch of advocates and overlay vendors, some of whom are in the room today, who belong to IAAP over a couple of sleepless, uncomfortable, painful weeks, and ultimately delivered a draft of that to the IAAP leadership at the beginning of August, with the intent that it was really a draft, and that they would take it on from a business perspective and also from a technical perspective in the absence of any other guidance from any other organization. But the technical guidance included 8 specific recommendations, first of which was to follow the W3C if they ever decided to take up this issue. So with that said, I also don't take the position on who within the W3C should continue this work or whether the W3C should take up this issue at all. You know, neither I nor my company currently are members of the W3C, although I suspect that may change if we get dragged into this topic because, well, overlays just seem to be the gift that keeps on giving. So in terms of the business ethical kinds of perspective, we had a couple of different recommendations in the best practices,
and, which we can go further. So I appreciate you kind of making the time, and it was nice to meet you.
Okay,
and should we plan instead of
Andrew, we've got a
again
cross-registered meeting.
some period of time instead of waiting longer than probably we should have to set that up?
Yeah.
Michael, you might be bridging
Yeah,
this.
Sorry, I forgot
accidentally.
to do it from this.
Cycle. I know we're also in the middle of our planning cycle, so things are kind of hectic right now.
Okay, sorry, it took me a while.
Sorry, Ken.
No problem. So
yeah.
It's a nice break actually, because I really don't like talking about this topic. So anyways, from a non-technical perspective, some of the concerns were making sure that there's truthfulness around the statements of organizations, not just overlay companies, but anybody in this space that provides accessibility services or products, the truthfulness of their statements, folding that into the IAAP Code of Conduct. And then that's also where the grievance process needs to be made more robust, so that members of the public or other IAAP members or even IAAP leadership, if they wanted to, could take an enforcement action, so file a grievance against a member who made misleading statements. So in terms of the best practices, though, there were several other concerns that we wanted to fold in, like making sure that the capabilities of a product are really well known to both the vendor, to the customer of a vendor. So that would be a company that buys an overlay to help them solve accessibility. What are the things that they're understanding in terms of the things that have to be disclosed, as well as things like what's being disclosed to the users. And I could get into, each of the different technical recommendations and non-technical recommendations that we made as we go forward. So
Thank you, Ken.
thanks.
Much appreciated. So there are ideas about ethical behavior. Be truthful. There are ideas about you should be able to escalate a grievance. That is reasonable. And in fact, there are processes in place for that, whether your technology is Carter's liver pills or overlays, I think. Now, next on the panel, Manu, welcome. Thank you. I'm glad you were able to make it. I asked Manu to join this panel because he's very knowledgeable and has been a friend to accessibility for a long time. But actually, that's not the real reason. The real reason is because he's involved in some W3C work, which, gosh, if it was in accessibility, it might be called overlays, but it's really not. But it exists on the edge. And really, it's the kind of thing that some of us in W3C accessibility have begun looking at for where some of the opportunities are that we haven't even begun to actually build code for. And there's some fascinating stuff there. So Manu, I'd like to give you a moment just to give us a view from what is happening at the edge and let you take it from there.
Of course, thank you, Janina. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the offer to be here and chat with everyone. Hi, my name's Manu Sporny. I'm one of the editors of the verifiable credentials specification and decentralized identifier specification. So verifiable credentials in a nutshell is basically a set of technologies that allows you to issue, store, and present digital credentials like education certificates. I went to this university, I went to this high school. Professional certifications, I'm a licensed plumber, I'm a licensed electrician, and many other qualities about yourself as a person. We can also use verifiable credentials to provide information about maybe people that we're taking care of, or animals. Is my pet vaccinated? Are they trained in any capacity? As well as things like shipping manifests. You have something that's crossing borders. Does it have the right certifications? Like if it is a box of avocados, where did that box of avocados originate? Where is it going? Does it have the proper certifications to cross the border? So you can think of verifiable credentials as all the physical pieces of paper and plastic that you have digitized, put in your control so that you can then release that information over the web and the internet. Now, when it comes to accessibility, we see a number of potentials, really exciting potentials here. One of the and dangers, right? There's a danger when you digitize everything that you have. You don't want an organization coming in and hoovering all that data without your consent. So a big part of verifiable credentials and decentralized identifiers is making sure that you have individual consent before that information is sent over. Before you send any information over, you want to minimize the information that you send over so you do not overly identify yourself to whoever you're transmitting it to. So all of these things are in scope. And so when you think of things like telling a website what your preferences are, I would like the font sizes to be so big. I would like the website to be high contrast. Verifiable credentials are a mechanism that you could use to do that. Similarly, when it comes to, let's say, crossing the border with a service animal and making sure that that service animal's paperwork is within your control, and making it so that you can release that to a customs agent so that your service animal does not need to stay in a stressful situation for an extended period of time because something happened with the paperwork. These are areas where verifiable credentials could help as well. So there's a deep amount of interest in the verifiable credentials group. This is a working group at W3C. It's active right now in ensuring that we are receptive to accessibility use cases and ensuring that the accessibility community are the ones that drive those use cases, because we are not the experts there. We are terrified of doing the wrong thing. And so, I think there's a session later tomorrow,
Yes.
where we're having the accessibility community come in and let us know what their requirements are so that we can build this technology appropriately. I think that's just that's an overview
And
of
it
what it
grew
is.
very much from an active community group.
Yes, yeah.
And this is the beginning of a community group. So if you could just take a few more seconds to tell how those processes connect.
Oh, of course. Yeah. So the verifiable credentials started in around 2012. So a decade ago, effectively. And it started out as a very small, modest community. We only had about 6 people in the room at the time. Over the past decade, the community group has grown to around 500 people across every time zone that you can think of. We have many different groups that we collaborate with around the world. It's, I think, a success story when it comes to the way W3C has tried to be inclusive and enable organizations, people just to come together in a community group, grow an idea from a seed into, a beautiful plant, and then take that into the W3C standardization process. So it took a while to get things off the ground because in the beginning it was chaotic. Nobody agreed about what we should be doing. Verifiable credentials were a lightning rod in the very beginning. It was evil technology that we should not even touch because it will lead to a papers, please society, and everyone will be tracked and all that kind of stuff. But over the years, we were able to identify the parts of the technology that were good. We were able to identify ethical uses of the technology. We were able to clearly identify things that were bad to do with the technology and write them up in specifications. And we were finally able to get to consensus with a much narrower set of things that you should be able to do with verifiable credentials. So I think there's a lot of overlap with overlays right now because I didn't know what an overlay was until about 4 months ago, and have had to educate myself on what they are and the controversies there. So I think there's a lot of similarities between what happened in the early days of verifiable credentials and a certain word technology being vilified, and then finding out that there's a decent bit of nuance there that needs to be discussed as a group so that you can get to a point of consensus to move forward, with the end goal of benefiting society.
Thank you, man. And thank you for those options. Some wonderful options there. And thank you also for the history of your process, because I do see some parallels and we are going to try to learn from that. And maybe it won't take us 10 years, but who knows? Journey, right, first step. Last on our panel, before we go to you in the room and you on Zoom. So if you do want to be in the conversation, please either raise your hand on Zoom if you're not on IRC. If you're on IRC, we are on #A11Y-EDGE at irc.w3.org. That's #A11Y-EDGE. The usual Q+ as we do in W3C, or if that's unfamiliar, Michael will monitor Q for us, but we have one more person. I am pleased that Lionel Wahlberg is here, not just a W3C member from a company that does something similar to what we in accessibility call overlays, but is an active participant in totally other activities in APA. He's a valued member of our working group. So Lionel, back to overlays and edge technology.
Thank you, Janina. I'll keep my comments very short because we are here to listen. I just want to point out a community group. The word community starts with the word com for common and unity together. What we have in common is a desire to enable people with disabilities to use the web. And we unify to create an accurate understanding about what a particular set of innovations can serve that end. W3C work is often called sausage making. It's not for everyone. How the sausage gets made connotes pulling away the facade of something to discover that there's unpleasant things under the hood. The unpleasant thing here, Ken mentioned, he said he literally hates to talk about this. Manu spoke about holding a lightning rod. That's a very unpleasant experience. I've been electrocuted a couple of times. UserWay is a full service accessibility provider that integrates automation with the traditional accessibility solutions. We woke up one day to find that we were an overlay, and Manu used great words, something evil, not to be touched. It was vilified. I've served on W3C for many years, and I began in Manu Sporling's community group. I would love it if people are attending today in this community group stay active and learn to be a part of W3C. It is an exceptional place where differences of opinion can be heard and where they can contribute to an accurate understanding. Queen Elizabeth just passed away, the late Queen Elizabeth, and she said, "It has always been easy to hate and destroy. To build and to cherish is much more difficult." My fond hope is that we can take the passions that brought everybody here to articulate the useful parts of the technology, the bad parts of the technology, and in the context of this community group, to create itemizations and useful metrics and useful documents so that we can bring these innovations, which clearly are being picked up by the market and funded by millions of dollars. Let's help steer that ship.
Thank you, Lionel. And just to be clear for everyone, we do intend this to be an active community group. We realize that it's opening slowly. There will be a posting shortly looking for a telecon time, one of those standard tools we use. We will use email. We will use the various tools available there, GitHub issues, various documents, whether it's the framing document that was posted a few days ago to get the conversation started, etc. But as Lionel said, we're here to hear from everyone. So please do queue up. Please be succinct. Please be polite. And please speak up. Michael, who's on queue?
Andrew.
Andrew Kirkpatrick.
I don't believe I am. Oh, you were President Plussing.
Okay.
Wendy.
I'm surprised there wasn't more people on the queue, but maybe I'll just get this started. So I am one of those people that signed that letter and have strong feelings about overlay technology. I have ADHD. I use the web all the time. It's literally my job. I use the web on my phone a lot, and I've run into overlays literally impeding my ability to use forms on the web. The little bubble pops up. It makes it impossible for me to do something without messing around on my phone for far longer than it ever needed to be done. And I'm also the accessibility lead at my company. I spend a lot of time thinking about how to make my products and experiences more accessible for people with disabilities of all, wherever they come to us from. But I think in the particular overlay space, the technology that's going into that and the investment and the money that's being spent on it could be redirected. I definitely think that there is room for automation. I think there's room for improving the technology that people like developers use to be more accessible. I work with developers every day who make amazing websites but don't know a lick about HTML. And I think the efforts and the work we should be doing should be focused more on how do we improve things like tooling for developers? How do we improve things like experiences for small businesses and independent creators to be able to make their websites and their online presences more accessible when, let's face it, they do not have the knowledge that we have? I think about companies like Shopify and Squarespace, who are building websites every single day for people, oftentimes using overlays because to the users on their platforms, they think that that's the best way to make their website accessible, or they've been told that that's the best way because they don't know any better. So to me, I wonder, particularly with overlays, if the people that overlays are serving is not necessarily the disability community, but it's the community of business owners and business leaders who can say, look, I care about disabilities. I care about people with disabilities because I've got this little button on my website. And the reason I believe that is because I've had people send me websites and say, look, they're accessible. See the little button? I've had a company tell me when I complained about the use of the overlay on their website that their customers think it's really great. They've had lots of good feedback. But when I asked who their customers were, they were referring to the clients that use their service to support their events, not the people who are attending the events. So that's where I'm coming from with this. I definitely think there's room for us to be thinking about improving technology, improving automation, making it easier for companies to be doing things that I think overlays partially achieve, but could be happening outside of the view of the user, happening in the back end. So there's more people on the queue now, so that's mine.
You want to respond briefly?
Well, I'm not sure if we're doing question response or if we're letting people be heard.
Okay.
I suggest that you listen to the queue.
Yeah, let's go on the queue and I'll go on the queue with everyone.
All right, fair enough.
Next is Thomas. Apologies for the pronunciation.
Yeah, thank you so much. I am Tamash. I really appreciate being here. I also work in the web accessibility space for almost over 10 years now, started in a small college, worked at bigger companies. And my bigger concern with overlays tends to be with the AI aspect of this. So I was just exploring the IRC client on this meeting, and I'm sorry if I spammed the chat a little bit with that, because it's not accessible. There's no live regions telling me I sent a message. There's no, like, I hit up arrow and the last message I typed up into the chat, and then I hit enter again and I resent it. So I didn't realize it was doing that. And those are the kinds of things I just don't know if overlays will ever solve. Those human things that, how do you determine what's a live region? Can AI tell us this? I don't know if overlays will ever answer that. And there has to be this sort of human side to that experience of how something is made. But that's all my thoughts basically on this, and where I'm coming from is, like, I think we'll always need that human nature, and taking that out with an overlay is not going to solve it. So
Thank you, Tomasz.
Fazio.
Yeah, thanks. So Janina, Lionel, a few of you have heard me say this before, but to kind of sort of expand on what Wendy's saying, I think the biggest issue that we have here with overlays isn't necessarily the technology itself, whether or not it's useful. I think having any kind of, assistive technology in any way, shape, or form is beneficial. Some people might find it useful, but it's in the messaging. It's in the way we talk about overlays and what they can do and how far they can go in terms of helping a user with a disability actually navigate a website. And ethical messaging, I think, is the most important takeaway here, not false advertising and saying, hey, just plug this little thing in here and boom, you're done. We do ADA compliance. Well, there really is no such thing as ADA compliance because there's no law in the ADA that specifies digital access. And this is what you need to comply with. We're actually trying to work on that now. The DOJ is revisiting that, thankfully. And, there might be some stuff to come later on, but not for the private sector. They're looking at states and this kind of stuff. But anyway, so my biggest takeaway for this is the messaging, and make sure that we're being, authentic, ethical, and, really, really clear about what exactly this overlay is, does, can do. And it's not, a one-stop shop and it fixes everything.
Hey, Shadi?
Yeah, hi everyone. So at the Accessibility Guidelines Working Group meeting, it came up in a subgroup discussion. What is the definition for an overlay? And I think that's an interesting question. If my browser detects things that look like a heading but are not marked up as a heading and can fix them for me. Actually, browsers right now already fix a lot of bad code, or detect bad code and retrofit things. Is that an overlay? if I have automatic captioning, which we sometimes use in our various meetings, and that's again not a replacement for human captioning, at least for right now. But is that an overlay? What is an overlay really? And I think I've been around when people thought their website was accessible when they had a Bobby icon on it. I think also sometimes people think their website is accessible when they have an accessibility statement written somewhere. So, I think we need to maybe separate out the technological discussion versus the communication discussion, as David was just saying, but also just generally the orientation towards accessibility and disability, and how part of what the work we're doing is not just technical, but is societal and trying to change perceptions and understanding of what responsibilities are. So, I think if we can separate the issues a little bit more, we can have a more honest discussion about each of them individually.
Good.
I think I heard my name. I think it was clipped there. So I'm going to go. I'm going to assume that a lot of people here probably already know my opinions. I've been pretty vocal about them. I've shared tons of evidence and materials. One of the things that I want to note specifically is there's all these talks about ways that technology can make things more accessible. And initially, I had no opinions on overlays or a lot of those technologies. It came down to me seeing them in use, me seeing how they're pitched, and me seeing the effects on end users. So regardless of when whatever technology gets to the point that it genuinely does help people, all the evidence now suggests it's not there. And because accessibility is really about humans, ideally your fellow humans, and because it's about people, I'm always going to focus on the outcomes. So until there is a technology that genuinely creates demonstrably better outcomes for users, I'm not going to be able to get behind it. I'm not going to be able to give it full-throated support. So again, outcomes. I don't care what the technology is. I don't care what the people are. I don't care any of that stuff behind the scenes. I really want to focus on outcomes. And as such, as this community group spins up, whatever it chooses to call itself, or however it chooses to frame the technologies or the efforts, if there isn't a discussion about outcomes, measurable outcomes, and demonstrable benefits, I don't think people are going to get behind it. It'll be difficult for me to get behind it, but I think that's something that we really need to keep in mind. Our goal here for all of us should be making a better experience for users, not for companies trying to satisfy legal complaints or legal risk. That's it.
I know.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I have a little thought experiment which will clarify my point, which agrees with so many things that were said here. So imagine a company called vaguelinks.com. And all they do is this little JavaScript logic that if it finds a page with read more, read more, read more, a sighted person is very accustomed to read more, read more, read more. You come to a page, you see these tiles, that within a moment, you can glance and know which article you want to read. But blind people who are navigating the page, perhaps with just a link navigator, they just hear read more, read more, read more, read more, and they're getting no information about the page. So
I've been on that page.
Oh, yeah. Now, a user like Janina, who's a very experienced screen reader user, knows, well, I'll go back to the page and I'll hear the text adjacent to the read more and I'll figure out what it is. And she can use the page, but it's annoying. So vaguelinks.com, maybe we'll call them readmore.com. You can imagine if you're technical that the logic wouldn't be that difficult. Find the two words read more, find the adjacent text that comes before it. In JavaScript, add an ARIA markup that will enable the screen reader, instead of saying read more, to say read more about children playing in the street, read more about a new restaurant. So they disseminate this, they sell it, they give it away for free, and we wake up one day, it's on 50,000 websites. There's no button on the page. Wendy spoke about this button that's annoying her. I so identify with her experience. I have something called cookie permissions that are really annoying me. They're on everything. I can't read the article on my phone because this overlay asking me to agree to things I can barely understand shows up everywhere. That annoys me. So I identify with that. But readmore.com doesn't have a button. But they wake up one day and say, you're an overlay. Because this other annoyingbuttons.com company has annoyed and upset the community so much, we're canceling you as well. The point of my story is the reason why we're here is to, as Shadi said, separate the issues to have a more honest discussion. If we're going to cherry pick annoying buttons to cancel the ability to fix read mores, I don't feel we're serving the community of people with disabilities.
Alistair.
Alistair, you may be muted.
Locally.
Oh.
Can we go to the next person and maybe come back?
How's that?
There you are. All right.
Sorry, my crisp software stopped. So I'm going to focus on the technology point of view, but I will plus one Adrian's comments from the marketing point of view. So thinking about it first principles, what is it that overlays solve that doesn't require you to make a solution specific to the context, or wouldn't be better as part of the user's technology? So if a solution applies uniformly across all possible websites and it isn't customized, what kind of solution, well, wouldn't that solution be better built into the user agent, the user's technology? And if it is customized, then shouldn't you be spending that time and money fixing the website rather than adding a layer of abstraction on top of the website, which is generally quite flaky? So that's kind of my fundamental technology questions on this, because I haven't seen good answers to that yet. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say something very similar to Alistair, so thanks for saying that part for me.
Sorry.
No, that's good, because I had another point, which is this talk of separating the technology from the politics worries me, because technology is inherently political, and especially when you get to things like technology that impact disabled people and that are specifically for accessibility, looking at the societal and marketing and company kind of politics around that is, to me, extremely important and should always be part of a discussion, because there is no, there is no only technical solution to this. There is no talking about the technology without talking about where it fits in and how it's marketed, and what are the societal pressures around it and commercial pressures. And to me, the fundamental issue here is that overlays are marketed towards companies and not towards users. And so my question is, where is the accountability to end users and people with disabilities, if the main kind of, if the main marketing push and the main money inflow is from people who do not have a direct incentive to serve end users? Thank you.
Jenny.
Hi, it's Jenny DeLisi. I would like to enter into the discussion the importance of how we discuss and name the items that this group would talk about going forward. When we learn new terms, we may find it difficult to discern at a granular level what those definitions are that apply to the different terms and elements that this group is going to discuss going forward. And so, for example, I've already heard a number of terms. We've been discussing icons that are in use, and many may find these complex and difficult to discern even as they're entering into the conversation. So I'd just like to recommend that when the idea of separation of issues comes up, I want the to encourage the community group not only to recognize that those that are new to digital accessibility, whether they are the customers that we're talking about, but also those individuals with disabilities and those especially that have newly acquired disabilities, that we consider the needs of that use group. I'm a member of the Cognitive and Learning Disabilities Task Force, and I can tell you that the terms that this group will be using will be essential to ensure that they have the opportunity, the members of the cognitive and learning disabilities groups that identify that way, that they have the ability to participate in the discussion and be active commenters on whatever information your group ultimately puts forward. Thank you.
Yes, huge +1 to that. You already have one really bad word called overlays. That means a bunch of different things to a bunch of different people. And I think that is not helping the discussion. Getting more specific about each issue and each item, I think will serve the group well. I am hearing some level of agreement on why can't we build better tools for the people building the sites? Why do we need to do this so late in the process? And that feels like a very solid argument, right? And there are ways I think you could look at overlay technologies that if you target them at the developer instead of the end user, maybe it's something that you use in your tool chain to point out things that an overlay may mistakenly try to fix. So you give the developers another tool in their tool chain that helps them fix the site before so they don't have to use an overlay, a quote unquote overlay, at the end. I'm wondering if the group has looked. So the first point is, it seems clear that the issues need to be broken apart and you need to stop using all-encompassing terms to try and address a huge swath of different issues. The second point is, it seems like people would like to fix the problem further upstream, and maybe that's something that's worth talking about. And the third point has to do with the approach that we used for linked data. So at one point, Tim Berners-Lee came up with this, linked data wasn't going great there for about 15 years, right? Some would argue it's still not going great. But there was a change in the way that it was talked about that I think helped. And that was Sir Tim Berners-Lee introduced this idea of 5-star linked data, meaning that you could start small and gradually move towards better and better linked data. And I know that concept exists in accessibility. I know you don't expect people to do a 100% accessible site right off the bat. It is an iterative process. And I'm wondering if there are ways of breaking this problem down into bits where you can convey what is a low bar and then a little higher bar and a little higher bar, so you don't make it seem like this is an impossible task for those organizations that are coming at accessibility for the first time. So that when they think about reaching for a quote unquote overlay, which is, again, quote unquote, the wrong thing to do right now, that they have step-by-step approaches that they could use to maybe make the site better so they don't end up in the nightmare scenario that I think a lot of people are concerned about. Just some food for thought. That's it. Thank you.
Jason.
Are we working?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, yeah, it seems to me that one of the challenges we'll face increasingly is the question of how to integrate machine learning-based artificial intelligence into the processes by which content is created and made accessible to the user. And so if we take the example of automated captions, for instance, then there can be very different scenarios. So in some situations, in a live meeting, for instance, it isn't possible for someone to intervene in real time and correct the output of the automated speech recognition system. Whereas in a pre-recorded video, the automatic speech recognition could be used as the first phase in the production process, and then an author could intervene and correct the captions. So I think there are different situations, and likewise on the user's side, when would automated captions, image descriptions, or other automatically generated content be appropriate as an accessibility tool? And I think that raises a series of important questions that need to be examined, and some of those have come to the fore in this discussion. It seems to me that that's a kind of an independent question from the issue of transcoding, which has been the subject of some research. I remember a number of years ago there was work by IBM Research, and there's a published literature on the use of transcoding technology to work around accessibility limitations of assistive technologies or user agents, or to improve accessibility in other ways. And I think that's kind of a separate question from, not unrelated, but I think it seems to me to be a distinct question from the issue of how are we going to integrate increasingly powerful machine learning technologies into content production and usage with respect to accessibility? How do we deal with the different burdens that it creates on the users and on the authors? And I think there's room for interesting discussion on both of those aspects. So thank you.
We have 5 minutes left in the session. 2 people in the queue at the moment. John.
Hi, I'm John Rochford, and I'd like to start with "nothing about us without us." We all know that phrase. And I think that any solution, any product, any technology that's being developed has to be, co-developers have to be people with disabilities. And I would like to see evidence from companies that they're doing that, and that what they're doing is successful for these people with disabilities that they're paying to help them develop their products. That's it.
Final.
I'll keep it very short. And if somebody didn't speak and really wants to squeeze in this last few minutes. So I just want to point out that 2 or 3 very different products were mentioned here, and they all get tarred with this word overlays. One was the visible on-page widget. UserWay has that product. We call it user-triggered enhancements. There's another product where there's automated remediation, as Jason said very well, and that automation certainly is required for us to solve accessibility at scale, and we need to grapple with those challenges. You know, just like captions, they're not great. They're called craptions, but they've certainly helped. So so UserWay has a product for automated remediation technology in the edge. And by the way, you can go to a page, there won't be any user remediated enhancements. There won't be any button on the page, but the UserWay automated remediation technology will be working behind the scenes. We have that product. And we have a third product, which came to mind when Manu talked about the tool chain. Developers want to know, am I done? And is my page accessible? So UserWay has a product of real-time monitoring. Now, I'm not here selling our products. I'm saying we make 3 different products. You can come to any page on the web. Some of the products aren't visible, just like you don't know if Google Analytics is running. All these edge technologies, the chatbot come from another company, the cookie provider comes from another company, the navigation menu is a free and open source community. So I'm just pointing out that this disambiguation and this clarification is what the industry needs to clarify how we want these technologies to grow and develop.
Wilco.
Thank you. I'm
excited to see the developments that are happening in browsers the last couple of years. Something like automated captions is now available as an accessibility feature in Chrome. There's a couple of other things that they've been developing. I think where this need for overlays kind of came from is part widgets and part remediation. I think tools can do a lot better in guiding developers so that overlays really shouldn't be necessary, it seems to me. And I think browsers have a responsibility there too. I feel like browsers haven't really stepped up as much as they can to improve on accessibility of the entire web. What bugs me and worries me is putting the decision of what assistive technologies are going to be used in the hands of the website owners rather than in the hands of the people that actually need those technologies, which is, I think, the biggest thing that worries me about overlay technologies as just kind of how they work fundamentally. You can do a lot, even if it's not built into the browser. You can do a lot with browser extensions. There's a lot of great ones out there that improve on accessibility. So
we're almost at the end. Shadi?
Yeah, I just wanted to voice that I also feel a little uncomfortable with the product reference made earlier, and I really want to make sure we focus the discussion here on the technology more broadly. Anyway, I got on cue to agree with Wilco, and just share the story as a quadriplegic. I actually traveled around with pliers in my backpack. Don't ask me how I get through airport security. That's a different discussion. But the point is that yes, I wish things were shifted left and that more ATMs were not as difficult to pull my card out, etc., and other situations. But if it as last resort, I need to use these, I prefer to have it on me. So maybe this is my bias. This is how I'm perceiving things. I'm not saying this is the solution nor is anything the one perfect solution, but maybe we need to consider different things and how they could become maybe more part of it.
Shadi, your audio is dropping.
Okay, I'll stop there.
Okay, I just closed
I didn't
the
mean
queue.
to.
It's 12:15. Shall we wrap up?
I think we need to. Believe we have more conversation to be had. I hope many of you of us will join, whether on telecon, whether on the email and in comments and so forth. We will further open up the CG. We wanted to kind of start slowly because we know there's a flood of things that we need to hear, and we wanted to get things going in a way where we could start to hear each other rather than just kind of speaking at random. So sorry for the level of control. Part of it had to do actually with getting ready for TPAC and other responsibilities relating to other meetings during this week. But I think this has been a useful session. I know I've learned a lot. Looking forward to reading the minutes. I hope you do as well. Thank you all for scribing.
Yes, thank you.
And we will make the recording available as soon as we figure out where it's going to be reliably so we can link to it. And we will simply continue and disambiguate as best we can. And thank you, Jenny DeLisi, for making sure that we think about the terms we're using and define them. That's absolutely important. And to many of the rest of you that made such wonderful points. We're done for today, but we're not done. And I appreciate everyone's time.
And I just want to thank everybody who took the time to join this call. We've had about 50 people in this session.
Oh, nice. Wow. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks everyone for not.
No,
You put your email in for the give you an email.
Yes.
Me and the
They go anywhere.
Really. They usually are connected to my account, but yeah, I got my email address.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna disconnect the phone before it gets too chaotic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Someone get a.
I don't know.